Claire, sweetie, not everyone is meant to lead. You? You're a great supporter. Your sister? She's the star. I didn't flinch. Not this time. I reached for my water glass, my nails tapping faintly against the stem as I lifted it. Across the polished oak table, Sophie beamed like the center of a campaign ad. Chin high, lip gloss perfect, eyes glowing from the praise. She even gave a mock curtsy, which made Diana chuckle. My father offered a small nod, always just present enough to say he was, but never quite involved enough to care. Outside, the golden light of October filtered through the stained glass windows of the Morgan estate. The leaves had started their descent. Some brilliant crimson, others faded ochre, like memories falling out of season. Inside, the air smelled of roasted duck and rosemary. And control. 6 hours earlier, I was in a pitch meeting across the city. My voice calm but exacting. My slides clean. The funding secured before I even stepped into the room. By the time the board had voted, I'd already reviewed the first phase contract for a warehouse expansion in Illinois. I hadn't mentioned the dinner until the last minute. Not out of forgetfulness, out of necessity. Now, back in this house, I was 16 again. Sharp, ambitious, invisible. The wallpaper hadn't changed. Neither had the dynamics. Sophie leaned forward, her smile blooming. So, I'm really excited. This logistics firm I've been talking to, they're totally aligned with my vision. We're finalizing a partnership pitch next week. They even mentioned potentially co-branding around sustainable infrastructure. I felt my spine straighten, not with shock, but recognition. Diana clapped lightly, like it was the State of the Union. That's my girl. You've always had such foresight. Real leadership, you know? She looked at me, her head tilting. And Claire, of course. You've always been the detail-oriented one. Every star needs a steady hand. I stirred my wine slowly, letting it breathe before I drank. Of course. What would have hurt once now slid off my skin like an old label. The kind you used to scrape at in the shower, hoping if it peeled far enough it'd reveal something truer underneath. Richard cleared his throat. You've been quiet, Claire. What's your team working on these days? Before I could answer, Diana spoke over him. Oh, you know Claire. Always private. She's probably elbow-deep in spreadsheets. I smiled. Something like that. Dinner arrived. Steaming plates on sterling trays, carried by staff whose names no one at the table ever learned. Conversation danced around Sophie's latest ventures, her apartment renovations, her plans to attend the Women in Innovation Gala next month. I listened. I always listened. That was my job, wasn't it? After dessert, a delicate lemon tart with a sugared rim, Diana lifted her glass again. To Sophie, she said. To the one with real potential. Everyone raised their glasses. I did too. I met Sophie's eyes across the candlelight. She didn't see the shift in mine. Didn't notice how something calcified, cooled. The resentment didn't bubble up. It settled. Dense, quiet, permanent. Excusing myself, I stepped into the hallway. The bathroom at the end was dimly lit, its marble counter still spotless. I stared at myself in the mirror. Not for reassurance, just confirmation. The woman looking back was not 16. She didn't need permission to speak. My phone vibrated in my clutch. I checked my phone. A message from Lena Park reads, confirming your CEO keynote next Friday. P.S. I'll be attending the birthday dinner as planned. Your company's anonymity is working, Ethan says. They still have no clue they're trying to pitch to you. Claire didn't look up from the tablet in her hands. The screen glowed with the latest version of Sophie's pitch deck. Bold fonts, half-baked market projections, a sustainability buzzword tossed in every third slide like seasoning. Claire zoomed in on a bullet point promising synergy with emerging logistics leaders. I guess I'm one of those now, she murmured. Ethan snorted. Emerging? Claire? Nexus just closed Series C at 12.6. You're not emerging, you've emerged. You're the damn iceberg. Outside the glass-paneled office, the hum of Nexus Logi HQ was as efficient as ever. Sleek workstations, soft key clicks, glass walls instead of doors. Everything about the space was designed to reflect clarity, velocity, and discretion, just like Claire. Ethan paced toward the window. You really want to let this pitch go through? You could just have Lena ghost them. I could, Claire said, setting the tablet down. But then they'd just keep floating upward, thinking they're untouchable. I'd rather they walk into the mirror themselves. He folded his arms, eyebrow raised. You planning to say anything? Drop the mask mid-meeting slow-motion villain reveal? She smiled. Barely. Number not yet. Let them talk. Let them perform. I want them to believe they're in control. It wasn't about revenge. Not exactly. Claire had learned early that her parents didn't value quiet wins. At 22, she'd pitched the initial Nexus prototype to them over dinner. Half nervous, half proud. Diana had smiled the way someone did when a child offered a crayon drawing. Such a cute college hobby, she'd said, sipping her wine. Richard had nodded vaguely. Sophie had looked bored. Claire hadn't argued. She'd gone back to her studio apartment, heated a cup of instant ramen, and coded until her fingers cramped. That hobby had scaled in 5 years into a lean logistics engine with clients on 4 continents. But Claire never bragged. She optimized. She scaled. She planned. And now she watched, amused, as Sophie stumbled her way toward Nexus like a moth to an unbranded flame. Ethan sat, tossing his phone on the desk. You really think Lena can behave herself at that dinner? Claire laughed, the sound short and dry. She won't need to. Her presence will be enough. They left HQ an hour later, slipping into a quiet cafe 2 blocks away. It had warm lighting, cinnamon in the air, and an unspoken agreement among patrons not to stare. Claire liked the anonymity. Here, she wasn't a Forbes feature or a whispered rumor in venture circles. She was just someone in a sweater with a black notebook and a mind that never turned off. Ethan stirred his espresso. You ever gonna tell them? Claire traced the rim of her mug. They don't need to know who I am. They need to realize who I've become. He leaned back, watching her. Still thinking like a chess player. I have to, she said. Every time I acted like a daughter, I lost. Her phone buzzed. Group chat, Morgan family updates. Sophie. Crossing fingers. If this pitch goes well, I'll finally land a contract with CM Logistics. Claire didn't react. She still doesn't know who CM is. Claire, Sophie said, smirking, you still work at that little app company, right? I looked at her. The ballroom light flattered everyone. Gold glow, soft filters over faces, crystal chandeliers casting symmetrical halos. Her dress sparkled more than it should have. Her confidence did too. I reached for the glass of champagne in front of me and said nothing. My silence let her think she was right. We were seated around a long mahogany table, perfectly curated. Floral centerpieces, silver-rimmed plates, the Morgan crest embroidered on ivory napkins. Diana was in her element, poised and polished at the head of the table, offering compliments like favors. Richard nodded along beside her, as always. In the hallway just outside, the family photo wall gleamed. Sophie centered in every frame, eyes bright with the kind of confidence only constant praise could forge. I was in some of them, mostly in the background. Cropped, turned away. Once, literally blurred by a motion-shaken lens. No one had replaced the picture. Now Sophie was in full pitch mode, gesturing elegantly as she spoke about market synergy and agile expansion. Her words had the rhythm of a TED Talk practiced in front of a mirror. Diana smiled like she'd produced her from a mold. And with this new logistics firm, CM Logistics, we're so close. We've synced on every KPI. It's going to be massive, Sophie said, her voice rising with momentum. I mean, this could triple our delivery speed. Sustainability meets scalability. I sipped my champagne. Ethan would have found this hilarious. Even in heels and diamonds, she was guessing at what Nexus did. Just as Diana lifted her glass for a toast, a new voice rang out. Oh, we're toasting already? Don't tell me I'm late. Lena Park walked in like she owned the oxygen in the room. Sleek navy suit, minimalist heels, crimson lipstick, deliberately casual in a way that screamed wealth. Every head turned, and when she crossed directly to me and kissed my cheek, I knew the room was watching. You didn't tell me this was a private dinner for the CEO of Nexus Logi? She said, loud and delighted. The sound of cutlery pausing, forks scraping plates, champagne fizzing too loudly in stunned silence. It all hit at once. I didn't look at Sophie. I looked at Diana. Her face, for once, was unreadable. Her mouth half open, glass frozen midair. Richard blinked as if processing a glitch in the Matrix. Sophie's voice cut in, weak and wobbling. Wait, what did you say? Lena, oblivious or pretending to be, plopped into the empty chair beside me. Claire didn't tell you? That's so like her. Understated brilliance. I've been dying to invest again since Series B, but she plays hardball. She winked. Diana leaned forward slowly. Claire, you're the CEO of Nexus? I turned to her, then to the room. I let the weight of the silence settle, let every misunderstanding marinate. I lifted my glass. To hidden potential, I said. Sometimes it just needs time. And the right moment. A few guests chuckled nervously. Others watched me like I had just grown a second head. As Diana drops her fork, I smile and sip my wine. Sophie's eyes beg for clarity. I say nothing. Claire's the CEO? Sophie laughed, too loudly. Number, that can't be real. She wouldn't. She couldn't. The words bounced off the walls of the hallway like a failed joke. Guests lingered in the background, murmuring in half-hearted politeness as they slipped away toward coats and chauffeurs. Rain smudged the edges of the night beyond the tall windows, thunder pressing low in the sky, as if the house itself could feel the shift. I didn't answer her. Sophie followed me as I walked away from the dining room, heels clicking frantically behind mine. Claire! Her voice pitched now, less mocking, more desperate. You're not serious, you're just… What? Pretending to be CEO for… what? Validation? I stopped in front of the pantry door. The old wood creaked slightly as I pushed it open. Dim light, familiar jars of imported olives and overpriced truffle oil. This house never changed. Even the secrets stayed shelved. I'm not pretending, I said softly, not looking at her. I built Nexus from the ground up, while you were planning hashtags. You're lying, she hissed. You always wanted to be the smart one. This is just your moment to rub it in. Ethan appeared behind her, wordless. His presence grounded me, like always. Sophie caught sight of him. And who's he supposed to be? Your PR guy? Ethan raised an eyebrow but didn't respond. Instead, he pulled a folded piece of paper from his coat pocket and handed it to me. I unfolded it, recognizing the Nexus internal rejection letter immediately. Sophie's proposal had been vague, overambitious, and reliant on surface-level tech jargon. The team had passed on it within minutes. Claire Morgan, CEO, had simply stayed quiet. I handed the letter to Sophie. She scanned it, her face drained. No, this can't be… Diana's voice cut in from the hallway. Girls, please, not here. I turned, watching her step into the room. Her expression was polished but tense, the kind of control she maintained only when she knew she was bleeding influence. You could have said something, she said to me. Years ago. I did, I replied coolly. When I was 21, I applied for that Stanford AI grant. You told me not to bother. Diana opened her mouth, closed it. Ethan stepped forward again, slower this time. While sorting the estate mail in the archives, we found this. He handed me an aged envelope, yellowed at the edges, the seal still intact. I read the return address and felt the air thicken. Sophie snatched it before I could stop her, tore it open with trembling fingers. The scholarship letter, full ride, Research funding. Stanford, dated July 2014. What is this doing in the house? She asked, voice barely audible. Behind old tax files, Ethan said. Unopened, misfiled, or hidden. Hard to say. Diana's hand touched the door frame. She didn't move. I faced them both. Calm. You always said she had more potential, I said. But potential only matters if it becomes something. I did. No one spoke. Outside, the storm cracked fully now, rain slicing across the driveway. Somewhere down the hall, a chandelier flickered. Sophie turned too fast. Her elbow caught her wine glass, sending it tumbling from the side table. Red spilled across the marble like a wound, and from the edge of the mess, the scholarship letter fluttered to the floor. My Stanford AI scholarship. Postmarked 2014. I didn't mean to hurt you, Sophie whispered. I just always thought you were okay staying in the background. Because I never had a choice. Our brunch sat untouched between us. A silver spoon clinked gently in her coffee cup each time she shifted. I'd ordered something. Avocado toast, I think. But I couldn't remember taking a bite. We were seated in a quiet corner of a cafe off Greenwich Avenue, the kind with linen napkins and soft jazz. It didn't matter how elegant the space was. Guilt made everything ugly. Sophie looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyeliner had smudged faintly at the edges, and she kept running her thumb over her ring like she was polishing indecision. I didn't know, she said. About Nexus. About you. You didn't ask. That's not fair. No, I said, picking up my fork and setting it down again. But it's accurate. She looked down. Outside the window, leaves spun in slow circles along the pavement. Autumn always made this town look like a postcard, but even the prettiest scenes could hold silence like a bruise. You were always so distant, she said finally. You buried yourself in books and code. You didn't want the spotlight. I didn't want to compete with someone who already had the judges in her corner. She flinched. I just tried to keep up with what Mom wanted. She put pressure on me too, Claire. You think it was easy being the favorite? I think it was easier than being the spare. Sophie closed her eyes, breathed in through her nose. When we were kids, I thought you didn't care. You never fought back. I took a sip of my now cold coffee. I did once. Remember the student council speech? Her brow furrowed. I wrote that speech. You read it. Everyone stood and clapped and told you how inspiring you were. I asked for credit. You got a standing ovation. I got grounded. Recognition flickered across her face. Mom said it would confuse the teachers, make me look dishonest. No, I said quietly. It would have made me look seen. She reached across the table. Her hand hovered. I really didn't mean to take it all from you. I stared at her. But you didn't stop either. Her hand dropped. We sat in silence for a while. The waitress came by, refilled our water, and left. Sophie finally spoke again, her voice fragile. I'm sorry, Claire, really. If I could take it back. But you can't. But maybe we could still do the pitch. I mean, Nexus and me. The proposal. I can adjust it. You only call me a CEO when it benefits you, I said, each word measured. Not when it costs you admiration. Sophie blinked hard. She looked ready to cry, but didn't. A Morgan trait. We only wept in locked bathrooms. I just thought, she whispered, maybe there's still room for me in your world. There was, I replied, but not at the cost of my worth. Her lips trembled. You think I was chosen? She said, barely audible. You have no idea what I gave up to stay chosen. And for the first time, I saw it. Not pity, not remorse, but a crack in the marble. Not enough to fix anything, but enough to prove it was real. Claire, Dad says, can't we move on from this? We never started, I said. You just moved around me. The fire crackled in the hearth. the only sound filling the cavernous living room. The family portrait above the mantel hadn't been updated in over a decade. Sophie's smiling center stage, me standing just behind, barely in frame. My presence had always been a footnote in this house. Diana sat stiffly on the edge of the armchair across from me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap like she was holding back an apology or a command. Richard hovered near the bookshelf, pretending to browse titles he hadn't touched in years. Avoidance had always been his defense, silence his chosen weapon. I placed the legal folder gently on the coffee table between us. It landed with a soft thud, but the weight was seismic. "What's this?" Diana asked, already reaching. Nexus Logi is finalizing a branding update. Effective immediately, the Morgan name will be removed from all press releases, board filings, and public-facing documents. We're no longer leveraging family association, real or perceived. Her lips parted in protest, but no sound came. I continued. Sophie's guest credentials on the investor platform have been revoked. She'll receive a formal notice. If she attempts to use internal documents or slides from her pitch, we'll pursue legal recourse. Richard coughed once, awkward and low. "Claire, sweetheart, don't you think that's a bit dramatic?" I turned to him slowly. "Number, I think it's tidy." Diana rose. "We're trying here. I'm trying. I invited Lena out of courtesy, not to—" "You invited her because she's leverage," I cut in. "You thought aligning Sophie with someone like Lena would make her pitch irresistible. You gambled with your daughter's dignity. And lost." Diana's eyes flashed. "Don't twist my intentions." I tilted my head. "Twist? I'm just reading the pattern you've stitched since I was 12. She drew herself up. "I've only ever wanted the best for both of you." "No," I said. "You wanted the best from both of us. And when I gave it quietly, you ignored it. When Sophie gave you noise, you called it brilliance." Richard finally spoke, his voice soft. "It was never about ignoring you, Claire. It was about favoring ease," I replied. "Sophie made things look good. I made things work. You just didn't want to see the difference." There was a long silence. The fire hissed, throwing shadows that danced like ghosts across the mahogany walls. Diana tried once more. "Can we move forward as a family?" I looked at her evenly. "As equals, or as your scapegoat?" She faltered. "I'm not asking for apologies," I said. "I'm asking for you to stop pretending we were ever the same. I was raised on silence in second place. I'm not dragging that history into my future." I stood, adjusting my coat. My keys jingled lightly in my pocket, a simple sound, yet final. "You raised me to believe I'd never be enough," I said at the threshold. "You succeeded, until I stopped trying to prove you wrong." Diana looked down. Richard said nothing. The room shrank behind me. Outside, Ethan's car pulled into the driveway, headlights piercing the early evening gloom. He stepped out, his coat collar turned against the chill. As I slid into the passenger seat, he glanced over. "You think that was too harsh?" I looked straight ahead as we pulled away. Number, it was precise. "You've made your point," Mom says. "Now come help Sophie with the press." I'm not your fallback brand ambassador. The private study room smelled faintly of cedarwood and old money. Heavy velvet curtains muffled the afternoon light, casting a gold dim glow across the room. The desk between us, usually a stage for my father's business posturing, was now covered in neatly labeled folders. My folders. Diana paced slowly, manicured nails drumming against her elbow, every movement rehearsed, calculated. "We've received several inquiries since the dinner," she said coolly. "Media, old family friends, even the board at St. Augustine's. They're excited, curious. If we manage it right, this could elevate the whole family." I didn't blink. "Clarify manage it right." She glanced at me, then toward the window, like she couldn't look directly at the truth sitting across from her. "You'll be on the guest list for the Haverton Gala. The city press will be there. We'll highlight Sophie's efforts and your—" Her mouth twitched. Achievements. Reframe the narrative. I leaned back, hands folded. So I'm the afterthought turned feature piece? Diana smiled, tight-lipped. Your family. We lift each other up. No, I said. You leverage each other. She exhaled slowly, like patience was something she wore too tightly. Claire, for once, don't be difficult. This is an opportunity to repair the Morgan image. I opened the top folder and slid it toward her. This is a signed dissolution of all trademark associations between Nexus Logi and the Morgan name, effective immediately. That includes branding, press liaisons, social partnerships, and philanthropic initiatives. She frowned but didn't touch the folder. You're dissolving history. I'm dissolving exploitation. I opened the next folder. This document removes Sophie's pending PR access to the investor portal. Her credentials were inactive, but I'm ensuring they stay that way. She moved forward, her tone dropping into something sharp. You think you've outgrown us? I think I outgrew the idea that loyalty means silence. Diana's veneer cracked just a bit. Her voice trembled with restraint. Do you even hear yourself? I do, I said, pulling out the final envelope. And so does my legal counsel. At that cue, my phone pinged. I tapped speaker. You're on, Sam. Afternoon, Mrs. Morgan, came the voice on the call. Calm, efficient. As of 3:17 p.m., all entity crossover rights have been voided per Claire's directive. If you have objections, they must be filed through legal counsel, not through family dinners. I ended the call. Diana looked stricken. You think this is power? You think cutting ties makes you stronger? I stood, papers in hand. I think autonomy makes me unafraid. She stepped closer, her voice now razor-thin. The name Claire Morgan won't be remembered here. I met her gaze. Good, because outside this house it already is. I didn't slam the door behind me. I didn't need to. The silence I left was louder than any echo. Claire, Sophie says, if you could just see that I'm trying. I did try for 26 years. I no longer need to. The boardroom at Nexus Logi was nothing like the Morgan estate. Glass walls, steel-trimmed furniture, a digital skyline outside. No portraits, no heirlooms, just sharp lines and clear expectations. The silence here didn't feel oppressive. It felt earned. Sophie stood at the far end of the long conference table, her tablet in hand, fingers visibly trembling. She wore a navy blazer that looked expensive but unfamiliar on her frame, like she was dressing for someone else's success. Ethan leaned casually against the window frame, arms crossed, observing with his usual neutral intensity. I want to do this right, Sophie said. No help. No shortcuts. You already had a shortcut, I replied, sitting at the head of the table. For years. She flinched but didn't retreat. I know, but today, I want to earn it. I tilted my head slightly, gesturing to the center of the room. Then start. You'll earn or lose it in this room. I won't lift a finger. The door clicked shut behind her. She took a breath, then another, and began. The presentation opened as expected. Glossy language, buzzwords about disruption and emerging synergy. Ethan's eyebrow twitched, barely. I said nothing. She flipped to a slide that looked eerily similar to one of our internal decks. I recognized the structure immediately, and so did Ethan. She faltered, caught herself, cleared her throat. Then something shifted. She veered off script, abandoned the flash. She started speaking not about image but infrastructure, about gaps in last-mile logistics, about community-scale fulfillment, about building something real, not just something that looked good. I watched her carefully. Gone was the performance. What remained was clumsy but genuine. By the end, the room was quiet again. Sophie looked up, flushed and winded, like someone who had run farther than they thought they could. Ethan nodded, just once. I didn't move, didn't smile. I let the silence stretch. When it broke, it was only because she stepped closer and said, almost timidly, "I'm not asking for you to fix anything. I just wanted you to see I'm not writing on your name." I stood. We walked to the elevator together, her steps half a beat behind mine. Outside, the city moved as it always did, unbothered by family feuds or fragile reconciliations. At the elevator, she hesitated. "You think it was any easier for me?" she asked. "Being the one expected to shine all the time? I didn't ask for that." I turned to her. "You didn't reject it either." Her eyes dropped. "You did better today," I said, "when you stopped copying Mom's version of success." The elevator dinged softly. The doors opened. She stepped inside. A beat. Then, "Does this mean I'm forgiven?" I held her gaze. "It means you were heard. That's enough." The doors closed, and this time I didn't feel the need to follow her down. They thought she would stay silent, that the girl they sidelined, belittled, and erased from family photographs would remain invisible forever. But silence, once broken by truth, echoes louder than any applause ever earned by lies. Claire didn't seek revenge in the conventional sense. She didn't raise her voice or shatter glassware. She simply held up a mirror, one polished by hard work, dignity, and quiet resilience, and let them see themselves clearly for the first time. Justice in her story arrived not with fire, but with facts. Not with fists, but with finality. Like the last move in a game they never realized they were playing, her departure wasn't an exit. It was a verdict. When those who underestimated her tried to claim her spotlight, she showed them it was never theirs to begin with. And in doing so, she rewrote the legacy they tried to deny her. Because when injustice is met with unshakable resolve, the truth doesn't just win, it stays. If you felt the fire in Claire's fight, hit like, share this story, and subscribe for more bold narratives. Comment 1 if you've ever been underestimated and came back stronger. Let's talk in the comments. What would you have done in Claire's place?